Now back to the show. This is You and the Law with Sterling Fox on AM 650.
Great to be back with you today. Our guests in studio, Scott Stanley and Kevin Gourlay from Murphy Batista LLP, the Vancouver law firm that you can find on the net at murphybatista.com. And Batista, by the way, friends, is Battista, murphybatista.com. Kevin, you told us a rather eye-popper of a story there a few minutes ago and created a scenario that frankly caused me a little concern. Murphy Batista is a law firm that specializes or that deals almost exclusively with the insurance industry and individuals who are fighting to have their claims recognized by the insurance industry. You described a scenario in which you, if you weren't a lawyer, you would have this one would have just slipped right by you. You bought a life insurance policy from your insurance broker. You were asked a series of questions. You responded as truthfully as you could, and he said, "Okay, sign here," and the deal is done. You reviewed the form and found out that the questions that the agent had been asking you were not exactly word for word the questions that were on the form. So suddenly the coverage would be in jeopardy. So the middleman here is the broker, the insurance agent, Scott. So how liable are these people who sell us car insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance, and on and on? They're the people we trust to get our coverage right.
Well, in Kevin's case, that broker would be liable, but you'd never be able to prove the case against him because Kevin wouldn't be there to give his version of the story.
Okay.
But, I mean, the reality of it is, Sterling, that insurance brokers, they don't make a lot of money selling insurance. They get squeezed by the insurance companies as well. And so in order for them to make a buck, they have to sell it pretty quickly. They have to sell it fairly efficiently. And they've really mechanized the way they do it.
Okay.
They've sort of standardized it. But insurance isn't standard. People have unique individual needs that need to be addressed. And I sued a broker successfully a few years back because they just did a sort of standardized approach to the insurance, I say. And this lady needed some special attention, and she didn't get it. And what happened is she and her husband were divorced. It was an acrimonious divorce. He was an aggressive, violent person, but no one really knew that at the time. And what the insurance broker knew that she was separated, and what they should have told her is this: look, now that you and your husband are separated, you're still on title together. If he does something to the property, you're not covered.
And she was living in the matrimonial home at that time. She kept possession of the house and he left?
No, she was out and he was in the home.
Oh, I see. He kept the home. Okay.
Yeah. So all the more reason to say, look, if he does something, if he kicks in the walls or something, you're not covered. So do you want to change your insurance possibly, because the home was just in her name and she could have done that. And the insurance company or the insurance broker didn't do that. And unfortunately, one day he lured her to the home. He murdered her. Set fire to the home, and then he killed himself. And so the home burned.
Smokes.
Yeah, the home burned down, and the insurance company properly said, "Hey, look, the husband burnt it down. He was an insured on the policy, so there's no coverage." And that's what the law was back then. It's changed since, and so we had no coverage from the insurance company at all. Although the insurance company did the right thing, they paid out half the claim because they were decent in that instance. And then we sued.
The claim, I assume, would go to the dependents or the beneficiaries of the estate.
The estate, yeah.
Okay.
So the insurance company did a very decent thing. They paid out half the claim. They didn't have to. I just convinced them to do that because it would be good business and bad PR if they didn't. And then we sued the insurance broker for the other half. And we were successful, and the court agreed that they should have told this lady that her insurance needed to be changed because her husband and her were separated. And that's what happens when you don't look at it on an individual basis. If you just standardize it, things like this get missed.
Kevin, this is not in any attempt to slag the insurance broker business, because as Scott just rightly pointed out, it's not a get-rich business unless you work really, really hard. And again, even there, the margins are kind of thin. But typically, when you're in a situation sitting across the desk from your insurance agent buying whatever kind of policy, how comfortable should you feel that that person is setting you up properly to be covered by the policy that you want to buy?
Well, I think you want to have an insurance broker that you are comfortable with and that will spend more than a couple minutes with you at the counter filling out the forms to get it. You don't usually understand the the coverage that you're buying. You're hoping that your insurance broker does understand that coverage. And the broker should be able to explain that to you. They should be able to explain to you what exactly it is that you're being covered for, whether it's a homeowner's policy. They should be able to tell you what the exclusions are. So what potential losses could happen, what bad things could happen to your home that wouldn't be covered.
Mm-hmm.
And the broker should be able to go over those things with you so that you know what your policy covers you for, even if you don't understand all of the wording in it.
Let me give you an example, and this happened to me last fall. My car insurance gets renewed every September. So last September, we're in the agent's office, and she's talking to us about uninsured motorist protection and this, that, and the other thing, and we're going through the checks. And all of a sudden, she says, will there be any other person driving the vehicle? And I said, yes, well, my wife. And she said, fine. You do understand, however, that the coverage, anyone driving your vehicle with less than 10 years driving experience will not be covered. And I said, really? She said, yeah, that's pretty standard stuff. I said, I've never heard this before, and I've been insured in British Columbia for longer than I care to remember. Nobody has ever told me that before. Is that standard, Scott? If I didn't know this, so if I had a teenage son or daughter learning to drive my car, God forbid I should go through that again, I would have to purchased a different policy or added a clause to allow a younger, less experienced driver be covered.
Well, I'd have to look at your specific policy, Sterling, to give you my thoughts on that. But what I can tell you, your broker did the right thing. She alerted you to a problem with your coverage. So she did the right thing. She's a good broker.
Right, okay.
And so she did what she was supposed to do. She brought it to your attention that there's a gap in your coverage. An insurance broker doesn't have to give you the detailed coverage opinion that a lawyer would, like we would when we're telling our clients whether they've got a case or not. But an insurance broker has to bring to your attention gaps in your coverage that are obvious or exclusions. For homeowners, for example, the one that most people miss is they don't realize when they go on a holiday, there's a certain amount of time that their home has to be occupied or they have no coverage. There's a vacancy exclusion.
So this would apply particularly to snowbirds, people who have had a good enough life that they can buzz off to the desert for a couple of months every winter when it's nasty up here. So how long can they be away from their homes down south and still be covered, Scott?
Well, it depends on their policy. Usually it's broken down into weeks, months, 30 days. Sterling, I had a client one time have a double whammy. They go down, they bought travel insurance, they didn't disclose a medical problem, they went across the border, they had huge medical bills, $100,000, $200,000 if I recall correctly. When they came back home, their property had flooded, they were away for more than the amount of time permitted under their policy, their coverage was invalid there too. So double whammy. These are good, honest people that just didn't know the coverage they had.
Right. Now, they came to Murphy Batista going, oh my goodness, what has just happened to us? Life has become a calamity. How did you handle the case?
Well, I couldn't. They had no case. And that's the hardest thing to do, Sterling, to tell good, hardworking, honest people that think they've got coverage that you unfortunately don't have a case. There's nothing I can do to help you because you don't have the right coverage. You might have a claim against the broker, and you have to look into that.
Right.
But it's tough when you have to say that.
Kevin, does it cost to go to Murphy Batista and find out the news, good or bad? And in this case, in the case of this very unhappy couple, not a great day, but at least they got the straight goods from a lawyer who explained why not. Is that a costly process?
No, that's always a free consultation. We're always happy to meet and go over your potential claim and have a look at it and give you an opinion, usually at the end of that meeting, about your potential prospects. As Scott says, there's nothing worse than having to tell a client who has had a loss like that they really don't have a claim. The only thing worse than that is telling them they do because you haven't done the investigation properly and finding out a month or years down the road after more money's been spent on it that it wasn't one they should have pursued to begin with.
Right. Scott, just to pull this one out of thin air for me if you can, what is the worst denied claim that you've had to deal with over your many years in the legal profession? And get ready, Kevin, because you're next.
Oh, there's so many, but a really bad recent one is this one. A fellow bought insurance, and he wanted to do some renovations to his property, so he actually phoned his insurance company, and he says, I think I need to get different insurance because I'm going to do a renovation, which he did. And a lot of people don't realize that you have to do that.
You mean if you do an add-on, like a Florida room or something to the back of the house, you need to change your coverage?
You need to change your coverage. A lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
You do. So he thought he did, so he phoned the insurance company, and he said, yes, you do need to change your coverage. And they says, will you be living in the property when you're doing the renovation? He says, no, I won't be. And so they sold him additional coverage to go along with his homeowner's policy. Just it's a little added on rider. And lo and behold, in the middle of the renovations, the roof collapses. We had a big snowstorm in Vancouver, which doesn't happen very often. So it collapsed this fellow's roof. And one of the reasons they denied the claim is because he wasn't living there in the property, even though he told them that he wasn't living there. I was just going to say,
didn't they just ask him, are you going to be at the residence while the renovations are away? No, I'm not. Claim denied because you weren't living there. You can't have it both ways, insurance company.
Right. Well, the insurance company said, well, the original policy said you can't, if you're not living there, there's no coverage. And they were reading that in isolation without looking at the new additional policy. So, I mean, that was a really bad denial, Sterling. My neighbor's cat could win that case.
and did the insurance company eventually, shall we say, have a change of mind?
They did.
Okay. And how about you, Kevin, in terms of sort of classic denial, claims denied?
I had a woman come in not too long ago that had rented a car to take her 90-year-old mother up to the Okanagan, and she buys the full coverage on the rental car, which is very expensive coverage. It ends up being about $15,000 a year, but you're only buying it for a couple days.
Right. And it's usually more than the actual premium on renting the car. The insurance costs more than the actual car rental, doesn't it? So she takes the whole tab.
She buys the expensive coverage. She's on the Coquihalla. She isn't paying attention for a moment, and she rear ends a semi-truck. It does a bunch of damage to the rental car. And the police come and they give her a ticket for undue care and attention. There's no suggestion she was doing anything other than not paying attention,
right? Which
is exactly what you buy insurance for. But when she makes the claim to the car rental company, they go to the fine print and they say that the coverage is not valid if you are driving the vehicle in contravention of the Criminal Code or the Motor Vehicle Act.
Oh.
So they
so
claim...
the ticket represents a contravention of the Motor Vehicle Act.
Yes, which is contrary to the very purpose of buying the insurance. We ended up just fighting the ticket for her. The police didn't show up to the ticket, so once that was beat, the company gave her coverage. But even had they not, I think that was a wrongful denial on that one.
You know, this is famous stuff here, the fine print, this nano font, tiny stuff that they put on all of these insurance policies and stuff. Now, you gentlemen pull out the magnifying glasses and go through that for a living. But really, we, the uninsured seeking to be covered, really don't stand a chance when it comes to that language, let alone being able to read the font. I mean, it's crazy stuff.
Well, let's put it this way. A lot of our clients are lawyers that hire us to help them sort out their insurance issues on behalf of their clients because they can't figure it out. So I don't know how a regular person could.
Oh, so a lawyer comes to you and says, I can't make any sense of this, and I've got a law degree. So man, so how fair is that in law or in court in terms of the insurance company and the way they structure this stuff? It's to their advantage, obviously.
Well, you know, there's been some judicial comment about how complex and hard it is to understand these insurance contracts. They've just become too complicated. It really needs to be simplified down. I think the insurance industry would benefit from that. I think the people buying the insurance would benefit from that. It needs to be simplified. It's just too hard for these people to understand what they're getting, or more importantly, what they're not getting.
Well, as Scott said, we all need insurance for any number of reasons, all of which are perfectly legitimate. And imagine the chaos if we weren't insured. Think about that for a minute. And yes, the other side of that coin is sometimes you don't get the insurance you think you had. And we're just trying to sort out what is what today with our guests from Murphy Batista LLP, Scott Stanley and Kevin Gourlay. This is The Law on You and the Law on AM 650. I'm Sterling Fox. We'll be right back.
This is You and the Law. There's more of the show still ahead on AM 650.